Happy Monday, all you mentees. Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition. And join me today for your advanced look at the Savage She-Hulk Omnibus from Marvel Comics. Let's get started. Before getting started, a huge thank you to David Gabriel and the folks at Marvel for sending us an advanced copy of this Omnibus. This Omnibus is due out in the direct market and book market on April 19th. Now, when I say direct market, that's exactly what we're looking at here. This is the direct market cover. On the left-hand side is your standard edition cover. So the standard edition is the one that's going to be available everywhere, and it's drawn by Frank Cho, whereas the one here on the right is drawn by Big John Buscema. So, let's take a closer look at the direct market cover. So it is the cover to issue number 1, including the issue number in the month up there, number 1 collector's item issue. The She-Hulk Lives. Stan Lee proudly presents. And he does, because I think that was like his last co-creation at Marvel with Big John. There's the Marvel Omnibus up there, Savage She-Hulk, Kraft, Vosberg, and then of course this picture of Jennifer down there. On the back are pretty much all the covers you're going to be seeing in here, and what the contents are, and the ISBN. Underneath the dust jacket, let's get a closer look here, is the title, the Savage She-Hulk Omnibus. And then on the spine, it's exactly the same spine with a different picture. Maybe this is the one they're using for the standard edition. And then the back of the book. So, we're going to crack this open, check out some of the artwork, talk a little bit about the stories in here, and check out the very beginning for Jennifer Walters. Let's go ahead and get this started. Got some black end paper there. The Savage She-Hulk with Jennifer Walters in the shadows of the Savage She-Hulk. And of course, the credits down here, what it collects. So this does collect Savage She-Hulk 1 through 25 and Marvel 2-in-1 number 88. Here are your credits. And another place where it's reminding you what it's collected in here. The writers, David Anthony Kraft, who actually is the main writer on the book. Stan Lee only writing the first issue. Mike Vosberg is the main artist. All of the issues in here with the exception of the 2-in-1 and of course issue number 1. And then all the different inkers. You're about to see the big difference in what an inker can do to a penciler. All the letterers, the colorist. Fortunately, it's uncredited for the first issue. The editors at the time. And then collection cover and variant cover. Table of contents right here, kicking it off with an introduction by the creator here, David Anthony Kraft, from the Savage She-Hulk Marvel Masterworks, and then all the issues, the month it came out, and there's also another introduction here by David Anthony Kraft from the second volume of the Marvel Masterworks. And here's your introduction. This is a pretty interesting introduction. I didn't have the Marvel Masterworks. The way that I first read this was in the Marvel Essentials, the big phone books that were black and white. They were just cheap, though, but it was a good way to catch up on old stories, because at that time we didn't know there were going to be things like this, or maybe an Epic Collection one day. So, Savage She-Hulk. What is this about? How did this even come to be? There's a lot of funny stories that happen behind the scenes, and David Anthony Kraft actually fills them in, like how all this happened. So pretty much, this is the early 80s, so February of 1980 is when Marvel wanted to release this. The reason that Stan Lee and Marvel editors wanted to go ahead and make a comic book called She-Hulk was because of the popularity of the Hulk TV show. So Hulk was huge. I used to watch it as a kid, even though I was scared of that intro for some reason. But the Hulk show was so huge at one time that they kind of compared it to like the $6 Million Man. So the $6 Million Man had a spin-off with the Bionic Woman. So it was a female lead, and that show was really popular. So Marvel wanted to beat the TV show to creating a female character based on the Hulk. Because they figured if they didn't, then She-Hulk, or whatever they would have named her, Shulky, or I don't know, whatever TV execs would have named her, the rights would have belonged to them instead of Marvel Comics, which is crazy to think about just because of the way things are ran these days. But that was it. And a lot of people were upset with Stan. They were like, no, we swore we would never do this. That's the distinguished competition thing. That's what DC does. They create female characters based on their male characters. And I love that introduction. I think it shows a lot of the behind the scenes. So Stan Lee wrote the first issue, and in the first issue, let's go back just a little bit. I love the way that it's introduced to. Call him David or Bruce or Bob. I love that because immediately people that watch the TV show maybe were like, oh, that's David Banner. That's what his name was on the TV show. Nobody really called him Bruce if they just watch TV and then read the comics. But anyway, he comes in and just confides in his cousin, Jennifer Walters, who is a successful DA. She's an attorney. So he's like, yeah, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of that. I am the Hulk. And she's like, oh, that sucks. Here, let's go for a drive. At this time, though, because she's involved in a recent case, on the way to her house, Nicholas Trask gunman, in response to her defending his rival, Lou Monkton, shoots Jennifer. So his goons end up shooting Jennifer. And of course, Bruce Banner, the Hulk, thinks quickly and he gives her a blood transfusion. And then because he's wanted by the police, he's like, oh man, I can't stick around. I gotta bounce. So he bounces. Now, of course, these goons realize they didn't finish the job, so they come in to finish it at the hospital. And because of all the stress and the blood transfusion, Jennifer Walters, attorney, becomes She-Hulk. That's the origin. That's pretty much it. And Stan Lee and Big John Buscema were like, okay, well, we did our job. Hey, how about David Anthony Kraft take over the run? So he does. He comes in with issue number 2, and he starts building a supporting cast. We actually see her and her family, longtime friend Jill, this kid that she used to babysit who is now an adult named Zapper. I think that's a really cool, that's not his name, but that's what they call him. That's what she calls him. We see her rival DA Buck Bukowski. So we're introduced to this cast that will become her supporting cast for a while. Now, not a lot of people know her secret. Not a lot of people know that Jennifer Walters can turn into She-Hulk. So in the second issue, something horrible happens to her life. She loses her friend Jill, and again, it's because of all ties to the mob, and everyone blames her, including her father, who is a sheriff. They blame not Jennifer Walters, but She-Hulk. And like I said, not a lot of people know that Jennifer Walters is She-Hulk. So her own father goes up against her. There's this Iron Man reject type of armor that goes after her. And then there's my dude Zapper, who's all grown up now. This is her dad coming after her. She-Hulk must die. So the first 6 issues, well, rightly placed shower fog there. Oh, well, where was I? So the first 6 issues really are about just misunderstandings. Just to clear her name, people are wanting her because they think that she's the one that is responsible for Jill's death. Issue number 6 does change things up, though. This is where Iron Man comes in. And I really love this issue. But before we go any further, I have to show these letters. Because, man, it just shows like how much, just as comic book readers, we haven't changed when it comes to the acceptance of female characters that are based on male characters or whatever. This is funny. My favorite one, I think, is What's Next? The Invincible Iron Man. That was awesome. There's another one here that's like, She-Hulk's a disaster. She's an insult to the Marvel ingenuity and to all your fans. And then it's mixed, right? So that's what I meant. Like, there's always mixed reaction when it comes to these. Some people hate the idea of a female version of an existing character or a teenage version of an existing character. But I think that's just comes with comics. You get used to it. You read comics for so long that you know that that's what DC and Marvel has done to create legacy characters. I think DC has done it a lot longer, though, with the introduction, of course, of Robin and then the Teen Titans, whereas Marvel really didn't have a sense of legacy characters like that, and they just started popping up like with the Young Avengers and during that era. But anyway, I love this because this shows the difference between She-Hulk and Hulk. You see, She-Hulk retains her intelligence. She's not dumb. She's not, I mean, she's strong, but she's not like her cousin. So Iron Man immediately comes in for an attack. You know, misunderstandings, because it's a superhero book. And she starts talking to him, and she's like, wait a minute. What's going on? You can talk? What is this? And I thought that was really interesting because that shows the difference between her and her cousin. And in the introduction, I thought it was really cool. David Anthony Kraft, which by the way, it's not mentioned, I don't think, in the introduction or the second introduction. We did lose him last year. Hell of a writer, wrote a lot of issues of Defenders. But what was my point? The introduction I thought was really interesting because he was getting a lot of praise, for having a strong female lead that was a lawyer, didn't have a man, didn't need a man, and was physically strong too. She wasn't your stereotypical female sidekick, and she wasn't a sidekick to anybody. And his intro, he talks about, he's like, I didn't even think about that. Like, I wasn't there to, have a message. I was there to tell stories. And I think that's what a lot of writers do. They're there to tell stories without having a clue that eventually these stories would affect a lot of the readers in a way. I think Claremont was the same way with his strong female leads at the time in X-Men. He had no idea he had built a huge fan following for strong female leads, not until he started going to conventions. So I thought that was really cool. He had no idea until he was writing or reading articles. We have the return of my buddy here, Richard Rory, from the pages of Man-Thing. So whenever Richard's around, Man-Thing can't be too far. And yeah, he's still a bit of a downer, still a bit of a loser. It's really the way that Steve Gerber wrote him. Apparently, he was a lot like Steve Gerber, the way he saw himself, which is sad. Another phenomenal writer that's gone too. But anyway, in this story, it changes a little bit. Like, he wants some money, and he wants to own his own radio station. And he has a thing with, not She-Hulk, but Jennifer Walters. And that's really an interesting thing, too, because... So Jennifer Walters has a thing with, like I mentioned, Richard. Here, let's go back over here. This guy right here. By the way, since I'm going back here, I've always loved that cover. I was hoping that cover would be the use for the direct market cover, but I get it. You have to use the main character instead of the Man-Thing back there. Man-Thing Mondays, baby! You can't get away from it. And then She-Hulk has a love thing with Zapper. It's kind of a weird story. The guy that grew up, we used to babysit her, and she was like, the age difference was a big thing. So it's not really like a love triangle, because she could separate herself from She-Hulk, so I thought that was pretty interesting. There is a really good story, I thought, in here. It's also found in the pages of the Morbius Omnibus and the Epic Collection, where, Gemini makes an appearance. Always like those, the character of Gemini. Okay, so Michael Morbius comes in, and he needs her help to defend him on a case about a murder. And he kind of gives her a cure that she can now control when she changes. So it used to be because of stress and everything that she would change into the She-Hulk. I thought that was a really good issue, and a lot of people didn't agree with the ending within the comic. Like, her father did not agree with the outcome of what happens to Michael Morbius. And I thought that was a really well done story. Here's your second introduction. One thing you're probably going to notice as I'm flipping through here is the lack of a costume, because believe it or not, this is how she ran around for most of this. I think there's another one where she has like short jeans and what looks like a ripped tank top. But most of the time she's just wearing this white ripped dress that looks like a hospital gown. And then towards the end of the book, I think this is when it just kind of got kind of silly. We have a lot of introduction of new characters. Towards the beginning here, you have some really cool team-ups. You have, like, Hellcat, Man-Wolf shows up, and, like I mentioned, Morbius and Iron Man. And then the later half, it's like, we get the Man-Elephant, yeah, that guy right there, the Seeker, Radius, Torque, Earthlord, who's the other guy, Grappler. So it's like an introduction of newer characters that were just like the villains of the week. Then there's this overall arc, and you can read about that yourself, because that's kind of a little bit of a spoiler that leads into the ending of issue number 25. And actually, let's get there, and then we'll look at the extras. So here's your double-size finale. The end of the She-Hulk. Oh, man. Poor She-Hulk's even crying up there. But you could win a Columbia 10-speed racer bike, Formula 10. And this is the outfit I was talking about. So it's not short, sorry. It was jeans. But most of the time you're going to find her in this outfit. So it's not until later series that she actually gets a costume. Here's the story with the Thing. So this is after her series was over and done. And I found something interesting that I never caught in this because of the introduction by David Anthony Kraft. Who, by the way, I really enjoyed his writing. It was there was a seriousness to it, but he was also very cheekish. There were a lot of funny things. And one of the things that I said at the beginning that maybe or maybe you did not notice, the Word, what an interesting character, is whenever Vosberg's artwork is inked by, I think it's, was it Frank Spring, I think, that did some of it. But you could tell a difference in just the amount of detail, it seems like he was getting a different inker all the time. So the inks really make his art look like a different artist, but it's him the whole time. And as you're reading this, especially if you're reading it all in one sit down, you'll be able to tell a lot more. Now, the extras in the back. So here's a picture right here from the official handbook of the Marvel Universe. It was Al Milgrom. Original artwork here from Big John Buscema and Chick Stone, who inked it. The plot to issue number 2 by David Anthony Kraft. The book, by the way, has 648 pages. The thumbnails here for the cover. And I thought that was interesting because, the thumbnails are really hard to see. And even Mike writes that here. Mike Vosberg writes, hey, sorry about that. I don't know if you could tell how I want to post her. Some page layout thumbnails there. Chick Stone providing the inks here. Some Mike Vosberg layouts. There's the Bob Layton cover. Cover sketch for issue number 6. I didn't realize Terry Austin had inked that. Why did I not see that signature? And then this is a pencil art photocopy by John Romita, Frank Springer, who did a lot of the inks in here. House Ads, and Not Brand Ek script right there. And this is a What If little short story from the What If issue number 34. It's based on I Love Lucy. And you even have the original art in there by Terry Austin. Then, of course, the standard edition cover here by Frank Cho, showing her, gets all these villains I was talking about, like Man Elephant, and with her white outfit. Now, there's the grappler. The binding. Not much of an eye for 648 pages, but honestly, I didn't see any issues with the way that the book laid. And also, it does help, of course, that there wasn't a lot of spread pages. As a matter of fact, I don't think there's a single spread page within the at the very beginning or towards the end. And that's just the way that these stories were told. The paper is the same as most of the iMac printer. Not as thin as the Busick Conan, like I always mention. But you can see some of the art coming in from the other side, especially on the white pages like this. I'm not sure if you can see, but these are some of the frames from the opposite page. But that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this book, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this omnibus. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read these stories before, what you think about the Savage She-Hulk, what your favorite She-Hulk run is. If you've only read these in single issues and you haven't read them in years, and this is your first time reliving them, or if you ended up with the Essential, or if you got the Marvel Masterworks, or you're hoping for some epic collections. Again, this was the Uncanny Omar. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, ring that bell for notifications to let you know when our videos are going live. We are on Spreadshop and Patreon, amazing ways to support the channel if you can do so. And more importantly, all of you stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.